Welcome to part 19 of my heraldic tour of the Canterbury Cathedral Cloister, covering Bay 27, which is the Poynings family bay. And let's begin by orientating ourselves. We are close to the east end of the North Walk, the bay having 31 heraldic devices. This is overwhelmingly a Poynings family bay, but the central boss does not reflect this fact, being for Henry Chichely, who was elected as Archbishop by the Cathedral chapter on the 12th of March 1414, doubtless in accordance with a request by Henry V. This was following the death of Archbishop Arundel on the 19th of February 1414. This bay was constructed in March to April 1414 by my estimation, it being the last bay to have been designed by Thomas Arundel before his final illness. That Chichely himself had nothing at all to do with its design is absolutely confirmed by the fact that he was unable to contribute any arms to the final bay to be constructed, Bay 26. Chichely might not even have been enthroned at Canterbury by the time that Bay 27 was completed, and with high probability his arms were placed here on the initiative of Prior Wunsborough, who, having no arms of his own, placed the priory arms next to those of his archbishop. The Chichely arms were already in the cloister, having been placed here more than 3 years previously in Bay 13. This is the most elaborate of the cloister pedigree bays and includes ancestors of Robert, 5th Lord Poynings, going back to his great-great-great-great-grandparents. Lord Poynings was the most prominent of the Archbishop's vassals. He kept a house in Canterbury and from 1411 was a member of the King's Privy Council. The peer himself is represented by 6 different shields in the bay. 4 of these are placed together in a cluster, which you see indicated in green. His personal arms impale those of his wife Isabel, daughter of Reginald Lord Grey of Ruthin at 18. Lord Grey famously initiated an heraldic dispute in the Court of Chivalry in 1400 against Sir Edward Hastings for the right to bear the maunch of Hastings. Lord Poynings's arms quarter Fitzpaine at 19, his mother being the Fitzpaine heiress. They also quarter Ruxley at 12, his great-grandmother Agnes Ruxley being the heiress of the Kentish baronies of Avranches and Crèvecœur. In celebration of the importance of the barony of Folkestone inherited from her, his arms quarter those of Avranches at 26. Adjacent to the grouping of the 4 arms we have 2 shields for his parents. There is an impalement for Richard, 4th Lord Poynings, and his wife Isabel Fitzpaine at 27, and a second impalement for the same marriage at 13. Here we have Poynings impaling Grey of Codner, Isabel's father being patrilineally of that house. Next to these are his grandparents at 20, with Poynings impaling what I take as being Talbot for Michael, 2nd Lord Poynings, and his wife Joan. In an equal position of honour as another of the 5 central shields, at 14 we have the other grandparents, Sir Robert Grey, Lord Fitzpaine, his arms of Fitzpaine impaling those of his wife Elizabeth Brian. The pedigree is taken back further in an arranged manner, with the peer's antecedents encircling the plain arms of Poynings at 34. His great-grandparents are at 39, Poynings impaling Ruxley for Thomas First Lord Poynings and Agnes Ruxley. His great-great-grandparents are at 35, with Ruxley impaling Creole for Sir Richard de Ruxley and Joan de Creole, and at 37 for Sir Michael Poynings and his wife Joan de Northwood. At 33 are the great-great-great-grandparents Sir Bertram de Creole and Eleanor de Crèvecoeur, heiress of Avranches, here represented with the chevrony arms of Avranches. At 28 we have the 4 times great-grandparents Haymo de Crèvecoeur and his wife Maud Avranches, heiress of the barony of Folkestone. The Crèvecoeur arms with the voided cross are canting for crève au cœur, broken at the heart, and are datable to the 13th century. Those of Avranches are older still, and almost certainly originated in the 12th century. Lord Poynings's shield of peace, sable 6 crowned keys or, sits on the opposite side of the vault at number 4, with a variety of associated shields. We have his cousin Thomas Lord Poynings of Basing at 5, with the arms of Poynings quartering St. John of Basing. Not visible on this picture but carved on the stone are Thomas's cadency mark of an annulet, inherited from his father Luke Poynings. Luke adopted the annulet as a 3rd son who married an heiress. The ring or annulet was considered as being a fitting mark for a man who acquired wealth and status through marriage. There are a number of other Poynings relations in the Bay. At 9, the 5th Lord Poynings' aunt, Agnes Poynings, married to William Lord Bardolph, both deceased, probably as a means of commemorating their son Thomas Lord Bardolph, who had been attainted and executed. It was not possible to put up the arms of a man under attainder unless they were modified in some way, but he could be represented with the arms of his parents. Lord Bardolph had also been a personal friend of Archbishop Arundel. At 38, Bode impaling Ruxley is for the 5th Lord Poynings' great-great-aunt Joan de Ruxley, married to Sir William Bode. She is included because she left most of her Kentish property to her nephew Michael, 2nd Lord Poynings, to the disadvantage of her own issue. At 8 are the rather curious arms of a field of feathers in heraldic blazon, plumety. These I have deduced probably belonged to a cadet member of the House of Ruxley, perhaps to Thomas de Ruxley, a baron of the port of New Romney. The chess rook is canting for Ruxley, and the feathers are likely to be the black rook's feathers. We have a number of families in the Bay who owed feudal allegiance to Poynings. At 6 and 10, the 3 crowned keys of the Ickham family of Canterbury are taken from the shield of peace of Poynings, and similarly from the livery badge of that family. At 10 we have Thomas Ickham, at various times alderman, MP and bailiff of Canterbury, and a retainer of Lord Poynings. An agreement survives which he signed in the cathedral chapter house in 1406. At 6 we have the same arms with the label for Thomas's son and heir William Ickham. At 15 are the martlets of Guildford of Kent, who were also Poynings retainers, as were the Barry family of Kent at 25. Their arms here with a crescent for difference for Humphrey Barry, eldest son and heir of Sir William Barry. The remaining shields might be considered as infill, although some have lesser connections with Poynings. John Lord Boone of Midhurst in Sussex, whose azure cross is at 16, was closely linked to the Fitzalan Earls of Arundel, but the principal home of the Poynings family at Poynings was, like Midhurst, in West Sussex. The 3 lozenges at 29 I take to be the 3 carrow or cushions of the shield of peace of Ralph Lord Greystoke, the main arms of Greystoke having been earlier placed in Bay 21. He was linked to Lord Poynings in that both men were parliamentary peers, and by the same token he was linked to Archbishop Arundel. At 30 are the arms of John Kelsham of Kent, for whom Archbishop Arundel adjudicated a dispute in 1407. Kelsham was a benefactor of Motendon Priory in Kent, of which the Poynings family were patrons. At 23 are the arms of Bradston of Gloucestershire, while next to them at 24 are what I take to be the fishy arms of Hake. Blanche Bradston, a kinswoman of the king, was married to Sir Andrew Hake. Hake was an enemy of Henry IV, and by 1413 was a fugitive from the law. The estate of his widow Blanche was being administered in 1410 by John Bradston and Thomas Hake, and they presumably made a donation on her behalf to the cathedral, which resulted in the arms of both families being placed here. You will find a great deal more information in the pages of my book, Great Cloister, A Lost Canterbury Tale, published by Archaeopress in 2020. It's more than just a book about the cloister, as it goes into considerable detail about each unique shield, tracing its origins. You will find here many of the great families of England up to the reign of Henry IV, and also the European kingdoms. It comprises over 700 pages, including 771 illustrations, 37 pedigrees and a detailed index. You are seeing here just a small selection of the pages. Shortly you will see on the screen details of how to find it. If you would like me to undertake research on your own family, I can be contacted via my personal website, drpaulfoxfsa.com. And finally, do please subscribe to my History and Heraldry channel on YouTube, which of course costs you nothing, so that you can follow additions to my list of talks.